Beekeepers, Jenna here from Mann Lake, and I am here to bring you the first edition of the Beekeepers Buzz Beginners Series. So we're going to walk through getting started. If you're a beekeeper and you're here watching this, this is going to be a lot of information that you already know, but feel free to watch and drop any tips that you may have for new beekeepers in the comments. As we know, when you're getting started in beekeeping, it can be really confusing on what to buy, how many hives to start with, feeding your hives. So if you have any helpful tips for our new beekeepers, like I said, make sure you share them in the comments. So this series is going to be very high level. If you have specific questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, or we do have a sales staff that is very knowledgeable, so you can give us a call at any time with questions that you have, and they can help you with your purchases or answer any just general beekeeping questions that you have. So what we're going to talk about today is going to be the equipment that you need. We do have a few starter kits that come with the majority of the items that you need. So if you're looking for just a good kit that's going to come with most of the items that I'm talking about today, our premium starter kit is going to be the one that you're going to want to look at. All right, so let's get started. So first I want to talk about your hive. What should you get for your first beehive? So let's talk about, first of all, a hive stand. Every hive needs a hive stand. You want to make sure that your hive is up off the ground, not only to protect your woodenware from the moisture that's there, but also to just make it at a more comfortable working height. You'll find that when you're out in the bee yard, you're bending over a lot, and if you can raise your hives a little bit, it helps your back a little bit. It's pretty standard that you're going to start out with a solid bottom board. From there, you're going to get a brood box. So a brood box is generally a deep box, which is 9 5/8. So you're going to hear people talking brood box, you're going to hear people talking about deep boxes, and they're generally talking about that 9 5/8 step. That being said, there are different hive configurations. You don't necessarily have to go with that depth of a box for your brood box, but it's the standard. It allows plenty of space for your queen to lay eggs and raise more bees. So inside of the box are frames. So frames can also be called slats. Both of those terms, they mean the same thing. So the frame is the wood around the outside. The foundation is either a plastic or a sheet of beeswax that the bees are going to draw comb from. So if you are purchasing a plastic foundation, it needs to be coated in beeswax in order for the bees to accept and start to build additional comb off of this. So what's going to happen when you get started in your hive, bees are going to build this out towards the edge of the frame. The queen's going to lay eggs in there. They're going to store honey and pollen in there. So it's really just the foundation of the hive. Now you see that the one that I am holding here is black. If you are getting started, I would highly recommend that you start out with black foundation because it is much easier to see the eggs in the cells. Now, it's a common misconception when you're doing your first hive inspection that you need to find your queen. I'm here to tell you, you don't need to find your queen. All you have to do is see evidence of her in the hive, which is new eggs, and you know that she's in there, she's laying, she's healthy. So, like I said, start with the black because it is that much easier to see the eggs in the cells. So from there, when we're talking about hive configuration, generally people will end up with 2 brood boxes as their brood nest. And that's just to allow, like I said, enough space for your queen to lay eggs, and also honey stores for the winter months. So once you get past that, we're going to go into what we call honey supers. So a honey super is typically a medium or a 6 5/8 inch box. So super, medium, those terms are used in conjunction. It's the same thing. And basically, a honey super is any box superior in position to your brood nest, hence honey super. So a I have a honey super here along with a queen excluder. Now, a queen excluder I would classify as something that you don't necessarily need, but as a new beekeeper, it is going to make managing your hive a little bit easier. So what you do is you place your excluder on top of your brood nest, and then your honey super goes on top. And that is your basic hive setup as your hive continues to grow. Now, one thing I didn't mention is when you're first getting started and you're installing your new package or your nucleus hive, is that you're going to start with just one box. You don't want to give the bees too much space. So start with one box, and then you're going to add additional as they need that additional space. So from there, we have what is called an inner cover. So the inner cover goes on top of the hive. This helps with airflow in the hive. It also acts as an insulator because you have a dead air space then at the top of the hive between your inner cover and your telescoping cover, which is going to help insulate against both hot and cold temperatures. And it just is easier to get into your hive if you have an inner cover under your telescoping cover, because bees will do something called propolizing. So basically they like to glue things together. So when you go into your hive that first time, maybe not the first time, but as you go in and do hive inspections, when you pull off your telescoping cover, you're going to notice that your inner cover is kind of glued down, and that's because the bees have propolized it. So it's just a little bit easier to get into that. So now make sure that you have ordered your bees. I think it's a common misconception with people that are getting started in beekeeping that they can just put this hive out there and bees are going to come and live in there. And that's not 100% not the case. You could potentially have a hive nearby that swarms, and they could find this hive and decide to make it their home, and then you would have a hive. But if you want to get into beekeeping, buy your hive setup and then either get yourself a package of bees or a nucleus colony. So a package is just bulk bees with a queen, and we do have videos on how to install a package, so I would strongly recommend that you watch that as well. And then a nucleus is basically a starter hive, so it's going to come with 4 or 5 frames of bees with a queen that's already laying. And again, we've got a video on how to install your nuke, so check that out as well. All right, so now we're going to talk tools and just additional equipment that you're going to need for your hive. So I kind of have it broken out into the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. So must-have when you are getting started is a smoker. So your smoker you're going to use to smoke the hive, and essentially it is a calming effect on the bees, so it makes it a little bit more pleasant for you when you're doing your hive inspections. That needs smoker fuel. We, with our kit, sell the cotton fiber smoker fuel, and it's very easy to start. So if you're new to beekeeping, start with the cotton fiber. It's going to be a lot easier for you to light your smoker. We do also sell pellets, 3 different varieties. The pellets you're going to want to use after you get your smoker lit. Put that in there, and it's going to help your smoker burn a little bit longer. So if you're out in the bee yard doing multiple inspections, make sure that you're adding in that fuel source that's going to burn a little bit longer. Now let's talk hive tools. Every beekeeper needs a hive tool, and like I said before, the bees like to propolize and glue things down, so you need to be able to get in and pop your frames loose, pop your cover loose, so you need a hive tool. There are essentially 2 different styles of hive tools. We've got your standard crowbar style and then the J-hook. It is 100% personal preference. There isn't a hive tool that's better over the other. Just try them both, see which one you like the best, and go from there. Also, pro tip, get yourself 2 hive tools, because I cannot tell you how many times I have been in the bee yard and set my hive tool down, dropped it in the grass, and then all of a sudden you don't have a hive tool, so have a second one in your pocket, and it will make your life much easier. Then a bee brush. Now, this is something that I would put in between the must-have and the nice-to-have. There are people that say you absolutely have to have a bee brush, and there are people that say that you don't absolutely have to have a bee brush. I personally do like one for whenever I'm going in and pulling my honey, if I'm installing a feeder, just to gently brush the bees away. The bristles on these are very soft, and so you're able to move bees out of the way without harming them. But like I said, there's some people that say this is a must-have and some people that say it's not. So entirely up to you on if you want to purchase a bee brush. Then we have the nice-to-haves. So on the nice-to-haves, first thing is going to be a frame grip. It does exactly what it sounds like. It helps you grip the frames. So I'm going to just remove my cover here and show you how this works. So essentially, you just go right into your box, grip, and pull. Now, when you're in your hive, chances are you're going to have gloves on, and it can just be a little clumsy, especially when you're first getting started, to just get in there and grab a frame and pull it out. So it does make pulling your frames out a little bit easier. Like I said, it's a nice to have, it's not a must have, but once you get one, you'll be very glad that you have it. Then frame perch. So again, this isn't a must have, it's a nice to have. It sets right on the side of your box, and as you're doing your hive inspections, you can pull your frame out and set it on the perch. It'll hold up to 3 frames, so it gives you a little bit more working space as you're doing your hive inspections. So that kind of covers the basics on your hive, your tools. I'm going to briefly touch on feeding, and then we are going to do a bit more in-depth talk on feeders and feeding in a later episode of this. So there are 2 things that you need to supplement your bees with, and that is sugar and protein. So sugar is offered in the form of syrup. Beekeepers will make a sugar syrup and feed it to their bees, or we do have a pre-mixed feed available. And then for protein, it's going to be pollen substitute in the form of a patty. So we'll talk about that in depth at a later episode. Certainly, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and like and subscribe for more.